If you want to respond to a shake, you can do it a couple of different ways. You can actually get all the accelerometer data and really ask some serious questions about whether the x-axis is being affected over the course of half a second or so from positive and negative values. But luckily now there's actually a motion event you can react to, but there's a couple of steps to do it. What that really means is there's something the iPhone can tell you about called a motion shake, but you have to do a couple of different things in your code to react to it properly. What I'm first going to do is create a method called canBecomeFirstResponder. This just returns yes. Now this is kind of tied into the whole iPhone OS, and it's really saying that our view controller here can be a first responder in the same way that, say, a text field can be a first responder, meaning that if there are events being caused, this is the first thing that gets the chance to say whether it reacts to them or not. And we have to do this to allow us to respond to that motion event, otherwise we'll never be told about the motion event. Now, the second thing that we have to do is, even though we've got a method here that says, yes, we can become the first responder, we have nothing to say that we actually are. And what we need to do is make sure that after the view has fully loaded and actually appeared, that then we become first responder. Now, it's quite common to think you might put this in the viewDidLoad method, but actually that wouldn't work all that well. What you need to do is put it in a method called viewDidAppear. This is another method that will be called automatically by the application. And all that we really need to do here is make sure that our super is called. And then on line 18, we have a call to self-become-first-responder. So after the view has appeared, we are going to tell the OS we are now the first responder. Okay, so these are the two things we have to do to get set up. But then what? Well, then we have to actually respond to the fact that a shake has occurred, or at least the iPhone thinks a shake has occurred. And you've got two ways that you can actually respond to that. There's a method called motionBegan with event and a method called motionEnded with event. And what I'm going to do is just show you one of them. So what I've just done here is, starting on line 21, I have started the motionBegan : with event method. This will be called automatically by the iPhone itself when it thinks certain events have occurred. And then what I'm doing on line 23 is saying, okay, if that event that was passed in has a subtype of UI event subtype motion shake, then I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. In this case, do something very simple and just say self.view.background color equals UI color red color. When the iPhone shakes, I'm going to set the background to red. Now, there is also an identical method, which instead of being called motionBegan is just called motionEnded. And depending on what you're actually doing and what you're trying to react to, it may be the better one for you. motionBegan can occasionally get called a little too soon because it's being called when the iPhone is thinking there's a shake about to occur rather than when it was sure a shake had occurred. I can suggest that you just experiment with the motionBegan and motionEnded methods just to see what kind of behavior is what you're after. You may want your application to be very, very responsive and respond very quickly to a shake, in which case motionBegan might be the one that you're after. Now, we can actually test this in the simulator if I click Build and Go. I'm going to save that all before building. And the application appears. Again, it's going to be very basic. There's no buttons or anything involved, but what we can do is go to the hardware and use the hardware menu and say shake gesture. And we can see that my code is being called there, that the shake actually began. We're setting it to red. I have nothing happened right now to set it back to the original color. In fact, if we're running on the simulator, if I'd thought, well, perhaps I could do a motionBegan and motionEnded, that would probably happen a little too quickly to even see a change. But you can see how by doing that, we can actually start responding to the shake very easily, as long as we include the two methods to say that, yes, we can become a first responder and we are that first responder.